Welcome back to the Show Me Show podcast for episode 40, Big 4-0. This
We're
week,
old now.
Yeah, 40 episodes old. We have a little bit of our rundown. We have Show Me Show Fantasy Corner, week 2. We have our picks, and we're also going to go over some of the games from the Turkey week of games. So, yeah. And Bills Patriots is going on right now. Nick Folk is lining up for a 39-yard field goal. He had one of the doinks of the year earlier tonight. He makes this one, so 24-10, so it's probably over. But so yeah, we'll go ahead and get into the rundown. So I'll start. We start off for a very thankful slate of games on our nation's great holiday. The Bills play in Detroit for the second straight week. This was genuinely a really good game and a great way to start off the Thanksgiving day. While we were all shoving food down our throats, the Lions and Josh Allen were exchanging points and touchdowns. With a couple last-second scores and field goals, Buffalo gets the last laugh and sends the Lions home with yet another home Thanksgiving loss, 28-25.
Next, we head to the post-meal game down in Dallas for a divisional matchup between the Cowboys and the Giants. Despite Dable and the Giants' big appetite, Dable does have a big appetite, let me tell you, it could not compete with the appetite of Mike McCarthy and Micah Parsons. Zeke got on the board early as he continues his Thanksgiving dominance. Ironic because he's fat. Dallas pulls ahead in the third quarter and never looked back. Takes a very, very big win in the division, 28-20.
Skipping the Minnesota and Patriots game, who Minnesota won, we head over to the Sunday slate where a number of great games took place, starting off with a rematch of the playoffs from last year between the Bengals and the Tits. Once again, this game was low scoring and close, but Joe Burr came up big again, and Cincinnati sends it up your Tennessee and goes home with a 20-16 win.
Now we head to the great state of Florida, where the Texans are taking on the Dolphins. The Texans are so bad that the viewer couldn't even blink before the Dolphins were already up by 27. Tua continues to cook, even though Georgia's the best SEC school without a shadow of a doubt, according to Coach Mike McDaniel. The Texans tried hard for a backdoor cover, but their efforts were unsuccessful, and the Dolphins win handedly, 30-15.
Next, we head up the coast to Charlotte for a Super Bowl 50 rematch, but also a shitty matchup between the Panthers and the Broncos. Carolina and Sam Darnold were able to stop, drop, fumble, and roll their way into the end zone to go up a few scores. Enough has been said about Russell Wilson this year that we don't need to pile on, but when you lose multiple scores to Sam, stop, drop, and roll, Darnold, and the Panthers, needless to say, you're in big trouble, and boy, are they ever. Panthers roll to a 23-10 home win. And that was a veto game.
That's true, it was a veto game. Now we head up the coast even more to the Meadowlands in the New Rutherford, New Jersey, where the backup QB matchup of the century was set to take place between the Jets and the Bears. Unfortunately, the Bears did not give us the Nathan Peterman experience. However, we did get a Mike White masterclass, going for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on a 78% completion rate. Mike White Lightning may be the guy. He may be a guy as he leads the Jets to a blowout victory over Trevor Seaman and the lowly Bears, 31-10.
Next, we head down to the nation's capital, where the Commanders take on the Falcons. The weaknesses for these teams really showed in this one, and the game was close simply because bad football was being played. Brian Robinson put on his big hat and carried the Commies to a win in this one, though. Washington has their left hand up as they move into a playoff spot with a 19-13 win.
Now we head to Ohio, where the Brownies take on the Bucks. Tom Brady was looking to continue his undefeated post-divorce streak and was on pace to, but unfortunately Todd Bowles failed to drop his nuts and allowed the Browns to fight back into it and send it to OT on a phenomenal catch by David Njoku. After some failed drives, Nick Chubb was able to run his way to the end zone and send the Browns into the Deshaun Watson era, coming off a 23-17 road victory. Or not road, home victory, sorry.
Yeah. And that was kind of an elf game. The elf in the middle of the field caused overtime. And then, yeah, I mean, Brissett actually played decent in that game. And that's a game the Bucs needed to and should have won. So that's on them. That's on them. And that's on Todd Bowles. He might not be very good. And maybe we knew that from his time with the Jets and other teams, but maybe it didn't work out there for a reason. He might just not be a very good coach. His facial expressions, and granted, me and Luke aren't in the locker room, but none of the team looks like ultra motivated. He seems to forget that his quarterback is Thomas Joseph Brady. And their defense, he relies on them way too much. And granted, don't get me wrong, it is a great defense, but I think you should rely on Tom Brady a little bit more. And I don't know. I don't think the Bucs are a one and done organization when it comes to head coaching, but man, he's up there for me in terms of some of the worst coaches this year, and their record's not even the worst. It's just eye test. It's eye test for me, Luke. I've been able to see it. The reason why they've won some of their games has not been because of Todd Bowles. In fact, I think you could even say it's been in spite of Tom Bowles a couple of times. So he's up there, for me at least, for some of the worst coaching jobs this season, with Hackett and Cliff as well. Honestly, the Raiders, Daniels head coach, I get it. He's not a great coach, but personally, I think both Cliff Kingsbury and Hackett have done worse jobs than he has this year. That's just my opinion.
We can get to that game too if you want, since we failed to finish the recap. So that's all we got done. It's been a long week for us, to say the least. So we got about halfway, but we'll talk about the rest of the games, of course. And that one was a fun one.
It was.
I had a bunch of ideas for the recap for that one, but basically it was a shootout back and forth, and the Raiders had a little bit more luck at the end. And Derek Carr's Mr. OT. He has a 10-2 record in overtime.
9-1
like that. Yeah. And Josh Jacobs on that run, the 86-yard run to close it out. If you look at some of the blocks that the Raiders offensive line and receivers put out, oh boy, it is nice. So
yeah, they just parted the Red Sea.
Pretty much.
The Black Sea. I guess the Black Sea technically, but and he just took off. SEC speed, finished it out there. I'm a little sad about the Seahawks demise, like them kind of falling back down. I kind of wanted them to be a playoff team with Geno. Now, we have two situations here, Luke. We can either have a Seahawks playoff team, or we can have all four NFC Beast teams get in. Both are good options. Right now, it actually looks like we might get the four NFC Beast teams instead of the Seahawks, which is crazy. Absolutely bonkers. But that also shows how amazing the NFL is, because just a couple of years ago, I mean, we were talking about how the NFC Beast shouldn't even get a single team in, but somebody has to win the division. But also a couple of years ago, it was so bad. It was so bad, but it was so funny, where you're just like, does somebody have to win the division? But yes, somebody does have to. And
NFC South this year.
Yeah, the NFC South this year. But yeah, the NFC Beast is good, so I'm fine if that happens. But I would have liked to seen Geno Smith in there. But yeah, that was just a great
here's
game.
the thing. I'm looking at the playoffs right now. I'm looking at the playoffs. The Giants are not going to make the playoffs. All right. They're falling. I called it last week. I said they're on their demise. They continued it this week. They still have 4 divisional games, 2 against the Commanders. They're not going to be in it. The Seahawks are falling off. I think we may be looking at a team that has right now we're looking at that has no chance that may just sneak in. Maybe a team like the Falcons. They may sneak in. What are some other teams that are kind of hanging around? Not the Packers. They're garbage.
I
But
think
we may
the
be looking at.
Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are going to win that division. The Falcons are
I'm
kind
talking
of
about the wild
falling
card.
apart. I know. I don't think the Falcons are going to get a wild card. I don't think they're going to win enough games. They're 5-7, Luke. I mean, they're 2 games below 500, and they're not winning their division right now. And I think there's no chance that division gets 2 teams in the South. So
the
NFC South,
the Giants remaining schedule: Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Colts, Eagles. They'd be lucky to win a game.
I think they can get 2.
Which, if they get 2, they'll be in there at the end. But boy, oh boy, they're falling off at the wrong time. And
I know they're falling off, Luke, but also, I mean, you have to think. I mean, can they completely fall off the entire cliff? I mean, they had alligator blood at the beginning of the season. Now we talk about this: college football and NFL. Alligator blood runs out. It just does. And if you're a team powered by alligator blood, you're gonna lose. The alligator blood teams, they never win the national title and they never win the Super Bowl, but they do go far. But yeah, the alligator blood for the Giants may have just run out very, very early.
Too early.
I don't know if they're gonna botch all of those games. They will. He's earned a little bit of respect to the point where you might be like, maybe he can ring off 3 of those games and get 10 wins.
Who, Mr. Dable?
Mr. Dable himself.
But, I mean, regardless of that fact, they still have 4 divisional games. I mean, we're not going to get, as much as I would love it to have all 4 of these teams in, just of how hilarious it would be, it's not going to happen. And the Eagles are running away with everything, so they're going to make it. The Cowboys look like they're a very good team, and they're handedly in it. So it's either the Giants or Commanders, and it's just whichever team you think is better. And I think the Commanders have a slightly easier schedule.
I think they could split, though, and I think they can beat the Colts, unless they're just playing for Jeff Saturday's job at the very end. But I don't know where that game's at. If that game's in the Meadowlands, I think the Giants will be fine. And like I said, I think they're going to be able to split with the football team. So
it is.
Commanders.
It's in New Jersey.
Okay, that helps.
The Seahawks, they could hang around, but they still have the Chiefs on their schedule. They still have the Niners. They still have the Jets. So they'll be there at the end too. They'll be hanging around. They got the Rams twice still, so that's 2 wins. Here's a team that we may be looking at fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year. Just a little fun scenario that I'm going to call right now. The Detroit Lions. As much as crazy as that sounds, here's their schedule. Ready? Jags at home versus Minnesota, which historically they've actually had good luck at Ford Field against Minnesota. The Jets, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers.
You think they're going to win all 5 of those games? They could get on a little bit of a
streak here. Huh?
You think they're going to win all 5 of those games?
I think they will win this week. I picked them in the pick'em to beat the Jags this week. Minnesota, you never know what's going to happen in a Minnesota Lions game in Detroit. It just historically shows nothing. I mean, last year they were like 0-8 and they beat Minnesota. So you never know. The Jets, I don't know. They could have Zach Wilson back by then. And they're still the Jets. They've been really good this year, but they're still the Jets. The Panthers are garbage. The Bears are garbage. And the Packers are garbage. What says the Lions can't make the playoffs? And they're actually, I think they're better than the Falcons, the Seahawks, and the Giants.
They only have 4 wins.
know.
They would have to go on a tear.
They would. They certainly would.
I don't.
They have no room for error.
Though the problem here, Luke, is we are betting. I mean, this would be a crazy bet, because if you were to make a bet like this, because you would be betting on something that literally has not happened in our lifetimes. In our lifetimes. I mean, I don't think the Bears have won 5 straight games in my life, even during the Matt Stafford years. And I could be wrong on that. But if the fact that I can't remember it also tells me that they probably either, 1, didn't do it, or 2, if they did pull off 5 straight wins, the team wasn't very good anyway because they didn't do anything. Otherwise, I would remember it. You know, the only good Lions teams I can remember are the ones that is the one with Ndamukong Suh that lost to the Cowboys in the playoffs before Dez dropped it, even though he caught it. That's the only one I can ever really remember. So, they could win. I agree with you on the fact that they have the winning ability in all those games. Although if the Lions-Vikings game's at 1:00, that's a Vikings win. So if that's what happens, then you might as well pencil that in. So yeah, it probably is because it's such a bad game. In terms of right now, in terms of record, I don't think divisional games are ever bad, but I don't think that's really in the stratosphere. With especially they only have 4 wins, so they don't even really know how to win. You know, I mean, they're trying, but you know, it's not exactly a winning organization to be able to pull 5 wins out of their magic hat at the end of the season. So
I'm not saying that they are. I'm definitely not saying they are. I'm just saying look for them at the end of the year to be in a position to, if they win and the other team loses, they'll be in, and then they'll ultimately lose the last game of the year and choke it, because that's what the Lions do. But I think they'll be in it. I think they'll make a run, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here, because the Giants are falling off, got a tough schedule. Seahawks, they might just get in spite of themselves, just based on the fact that they don't lose as much. So this is the NFC wildcards. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild for sure. So,
and you know what, Luke? I'll say something nice about the Lions. They will be, when they do the graphic that says "in the hunt" for the wild card, they'll be in the hunt graphic the rest of the season. Oh yeah. So I'll say that about the Lions. I'll say something nice about the Lions. They will be in the hunt the rest of the season. So there you go.
They have a great punter in Jack Fox.
And they have a great punter.
Okay.
And they host the MAC title. So thank you, Detroit.
On Friday night. So that was NFC playoff talk. So I guess we could talk about Ravens-Jags. That was a fun game. We didn't do that in the recap. Trevor Lawrence, also, great drive. One thing we
didn't talk about. One thing we did not talk about with the Raiders game is literally, if you were watching Red Zone, they have that stupid rule where it's like, okay, there's only one game left. You have to watch it on your local CBS affiliate. I shit you not.
Yep.
They Scott Hansen sent us over to CBS to finish out the game. CBS is doing some dog thing on 60 Minutes.
Yep.
That was what was on the CBS channel. And I freaked out. Luckily, I went to my good friends over at Stream East to help save the day.
And I got
to Stream West, sorry. And I got to watch the game-winning run. But for a while there, I was freaking out. I missed the big chunk of overtime because Scott Hansen, who he addressed it, and he made a good point. He says, I have a boss just like everybody else. I wouldn't have sent you guys there if I knew CBS was playing something about dogs on 60 Minutes. And he doesn't really have an option, obviously. It's some rule. But sending us to a non-football zone was very not classy. So NFL's got to figure that out a little bit because, different areas of the country, the CBS stations don't show games. And so they just kicked us off Red Zone when a game was still
When there
literally
was
in
football
overtime,
left.
the best part of a game, and there was just nothing there. So that was a big gripe of mine, and that's actually happened a couple of times. But luckily, the CBS in my region was showing it. But there's some regions where it wasn't in the past as well. So that's just that's messed up, Roger.
It is messed up. All right. Any other notes about that game? Or was
No,
that it?
go ahead
It's a
and
fun
start
game.
the next one.
Okay, so the Ravens Jags. This was we're going back to the morning here, or the early afternoon. This was a fun game. That the Ravens kicked a lot of field goals with Justin Tucker, and then ultimately at the end, Trevor Lawrence, maybe a guy drive. He came on in some clutch moments. Marvin Jones had some big catches. Zay Jones had some big catches. Keeping up with the Joneses there for the Jags, and then ultimately Doug Peterson just dropped his nuts on John Harbaugh and got the 2-point conversion. On a very simple out route. That it reminds me of something I would do in Madden. So I respect Doug Peterson even more for that, just running a Madden play to win the game. And then Justin Tucker kicking a 67-yard field goal at the end and coming up short was actually hilarious because when he first kicked it, I was like, he's going to get it. That was my initial thought. And then obviously it fell like 10 yards short, but it's just crazy to think that they even sent him out there for that. And
yeah, it looked good. And you're exactly right. That just shows how much the GOAT he is, that they're just like, yeah, we're going to send you out here for this 67-yarder because we've actually seen you make it, at least in practice. So we're going to send you out there for it. And it just kind of died at the end. Like you said, it was literally dead on. So if that ball was kicked maybe somewhere in probably like Denver, it probably makes it. But the humidity probably killed the ball there in Jacksonville. And that was another thing. There's a couple things from this game, Luke. It looked really, really hot. The fans just looked like they were sweating their balls off. So shout out to them for going to a Jags game and cheering the boys on. It. What a great game, like Luke said.
Duval County.
But Duville, the mascot as well, was also in a Speedo the whole game and just thrusting the air after every touchdown that the Jags had and field goal. And even he was trying to taunt the opposing team with his thrusts towards them in his Speedo. So that was nice to see. That was a real sicko football moment that I really liked. I also just love to see just guys and gals just drinking, hanging out in the pool at Jacksonville. That's always nice to see. But this was a really good game, and it was because Trevor Lawrence, he's had a couple of games like this now, but he hasn't had a drive like this at the end of the game to win it. Like Luke said, Doug Pearson went for 2 to avoid overtime and win this thing. But Trevor Lawrence had a great game-winning drive with a bunch of big throws, and he was consistent the whole day. You know, that's been one of the big things with Trevor Lawrence, where it's actually looked like at times where he's like bust tendencies, where he's just overthrowing guys, not looking like the guy from yesterday in his days at Clemson.
He even had one of those throws on that drive too.
But he just looked way better today, and he's had a couple of games like this. So throughout the year, in fact, there was a game earlier this year against the Chargers where he had such a great game. We're like, okay, maybe this is what they build on, and then he kind of has just reverted back and forth to bad Trevor Lawrence. But this was definitely a good Trevor Lawrence game, and the Ravens' offense is not looking good. Lamar is missing passes bad. Their run game is pretty iffy, and it should not be. They should be killing people with their run game. And they just haven't
Especially
been as
how
of late.
strong the run game is in the NFL this year, just altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Across the league, there's been way better run games. And they should be at the top. So I don't know what's going on there. So they need to figure out the offense. Something has gone awry. They really haven't been the same in a few weeks. Even when they've been winning, it has been ugly winning, especially on offense. Their defense you don't fault the defense really in that game. I mean, yeah, you'd like them to step up at the end, but hell, it was hot, so I don't know what to say. I mean, the defense, I don't think that was the fault, but you got to score a little bit more.
I think it was just turning those field goals into touchdowns. That's all it is.
Yeah,
they kicked a
exactly.
bunch of field goals.
You're right. So they just didn't get that big offensive play like Trevor Lawrence got from Marvin Jones with the shin catch. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about that, or are we moving on?
No, but another game that also ended with a converted 2-point conversion as well was Chargers and Cardinals. So last week we picked the Chargers to win on the road, and they did it again. So they beat the Cardinals on the very last play. Coach Staley was getting stuffed. Their offense was just kept getting stuffed, but the defense kept getting stops, and the Cardinals kept having to punt. And eventually, Justin Herbert put a drive together, a game-winning drive, and instead of tying it up at 24 apiece, he just said, well, if we go to overtime, our offense has been pretty stagnant outside of this drive, so let's just try and end it here. Yep. They throw it to Gerald Everett, and they end the game 25-24. So, honestly, smart call by Staley, not the play call, because, I mean, it's pretty much a toss-up at that point if you're going to convert it or not. But the fact that he realized, he's like, our offense has sucked literally this whole second half.
He called it on vibes.
Let's try to win it. Yeah, he did. He's
nothing to do with analytics.
Yeah, he's like, the vibes are saying that we have sucked on offense the rest of the half outside of this shortened field drive, so let's just try and end it here. And they did, so that was very smart of them, I think.
Yeah, I really thought the Cardinals were going to win this game. Like, I know we picked the Chargers at the beginning, but after seeing Kyler Murray go down on his first few drives of the game, I'm like, wow, Kyler looks good. The Cardinals look good. They might win this game, and then they just lost. So I think that's the difference between last year's Cardinals and this year's Cardinals is that, they don't have that gene at the end or even the luck that just lets them win some games. So
yeah, they
that's
obviously kind of like the Lions, Luke. They don't really know how to win games. So this is another one that they just let. They just pissed it away at the end. And Cliff is on a very, very warm seat. So hot seat, and as Kyler as well, who is not, like you said, he started out well, but some things are coming out in the media. Patrick Pearson called him out again this week, and that's not the first time that we've heard that he's kind of self-centered. In fact, you kind of see it on the sideline, but which isn't always the case. Sometimes quarterbacks just go away from everybody else to kind of calm down and focus up and watch the game and get a good vision of the game. But some people don't think he's a great teammate and is self-centered, and that would be Patrick Peterson,
who did play with him for a few years. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that. So that was certainly a fun game between two fun colors, two fun teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in the afternoon slate, the 49ers beat the Saints 13-0. This game happened.
Game.
Alvin Kamara fumbled twice. And the game happened.
Bad
Andy
game.
Dalton sucks. His ginger ass sucks. Send him to purgatory. I never want to see him again.
Put in famous Jameis. I can't believe we're at this. I can't believe they keep trotting Andy Dalton out there. Like,
it's just
what is Dennis doing? It's not just that. It's also from a football standpoint. Why?
Yeah.
Your offense isn't working.
They have no first round pick, so they're not tanking. That means they're literally trying to win with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm getting at? Is that the process?
Andy Dalton had 3 touchdowns in the win last week, I think against who? The Rams or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't
the
remember who
Rams
they.
suck.
Yeah, the Rams suck, but he still threw 3
He should be
touchdowns,
them.
no interceptions. So I understand starting him after a
So
game
did
like
Mike
that.
White.
But during the middle of the game, if you have 0 points, make a change. Make a change. Whether that's going to famous Jameis or, hell, go and Taysom the rest of the way. You got to do something. I mean, they got shut out. And by the way, I think the 49ers have shut out teams 4 games in a row in the second half, which is crazy stat. But they had a clean shutout. I mean, they didn't give up anything. So, start to finish.
Yeah.
So, that was
And they didn't have much room
I mean,
either.
that game wasn't really on the TV that much. So,
No, definitely not.
don't know a whole lot about
And
that
then,
except that the 49ers defense just had a master class.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying. The game happened. And then another game that kind of happened. Yeah. People are saying.
Yeah, we don't actually, we can't even confirm that this game really took place. But
I don't remember seeing any highlights. So they might have just made up the score. They might have used the simulator and just said, yeah, you know what, 49ers win 30-0. But
yeah, they didn't want to watch Andy
Anyways.
Dalton either. They just simulated the game. Can't blame them.
Save these people's eyes and their time. Just simulate it. Just play it on Madden. And then another game that happened that was actually on TV and I did watch, but it was kind of unfortunate I had to watch it. The Chiefs and Rams. Chiefs win 26-10. This was a very boring game. Sean McVay got absolutely smacked on the sidelines. That was the highlight of the game, I think. Patrick Mahomes did his thing. He Patrick Mahomed. And yeah.
Yeah, that not a whole lot going on in this game either because the Rams didn't have Stafford. They had Bryce Perkins, who played at all kinds of colleges when he was a quarterback in college. But yeah, he couldn't really do a whole lot. He wasn't like incompetent, but their offense was definitely very limited. Who do you
remind me of? Teddy Bridgewater. And I couldn't even tell you why. Like I just was watching him play, and he's a little bit more agile and slightly less accurate. Yeah, and less accurate on his passes. But the vibe just reminded me of Teddy Bridgewater. I couldn't even tell you why, and I don't know where Teddy Bridgewater is this year, and I'm curious now.
I think he's a Dolphin.
Oh yeah, you're right. I do remember.
I think he came in for Tua actually.
Yeah,
when Tua got, Tua nearly retired, according to that one doctor. So, what other games here?
Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. So, Monday Night Football, I think we're going to skip over. I mean, the Steelers won 24-17, but Lord Almighty.
Better game than I thought.
Yeah.
Better game than I thought for the Steelers in the second half. George Pickens.
Kenny Pickett maybe again
from that game. Couple things from that game, Luke. George Pickens he's probably going to be really good in a couple of years.
I agree with that. And I also think that Kenny Pickett is going to be good. And the Pickett to Pickens connection is going to become like a nice play on words. Anytime people have like the special names, sometimes you're just like, they're going to be a guy. And I see that with Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. It's going to be the pick combination.
Yeah. The last time we had like a name combo going on in Pittsburgh was the Killer Bees. So that would be, nice to kind of replicate. But they always tell stories out of Steelers practices that George Pickens just is making these ridiculous catches day in and day out, and that he's just a freak of nature. And you kind of see that on the field. I mean, the catches he makes, it's almost like they don't throw him easy passes. He only catches like ridiculously hard throws and passes. So which probably means he's probably just going to become a safety blanket, which hopefully becomes
Yeah.
more than just a safety blanket. He hopefully becomes like a reception wide receiver going forward. I'd like to see them throw it to Pat Freiermuth a little bit more, even more than what they already are. And Deontay
I would
Johnson's
too. I want
almost
him on a
kind of
fantasy
started
team.
to take a little bit of a back seat all of a sudden. Najee played a little bit better. The offensive line, I'll give kudos to the offensive line a little bit. Their rushing attack is not great, but they have actually protected for Pickett lately. This is as of late. A little bit better than what I've expected. So, congratulations to the Steelers offensive line for performing well.
I think the offense of the Steelers is starting to come together, but they're being held back by Mr. Canada. Mr. Matt Canada, we've said it before, he's a terrorist. He sucks. And if he is not fired at the end of the year, I don't know what the Steelers are doing. I know they don't like to fire coaches, but this guy sucks. Literally, there was a Colts player, like he was mic'd up or whatever, and they did like a run, like a draw run or something. And he goes, "They're running the same plays. It's the same plays." And like, this guy is just not creative. That clip earlier this year when the Steelers won and Matt Canada was like celebrating and Chris Boswell was like, "Well, it's certainly not because of you, man. Like they hate him. They know he sucks." And they have talent on their offense. And I really believe that they would be so much better. Hell, if I was calling plays, and the only plays I would know is Madden plays. But I would just draw up like a different play. I'm like, yeah, you run here, do that, than what Matt Canada. And that might be a wild take because Matt Canada is a football lifer, but I think this is the point that where we're at. So
yeah. And honestly, I think part of Najee Harris's regression over this season, because let's be honest, Luke, I mean, Najee Harris has not been great this season. And I think a part of that was he had to carry the offense on his back, and so he started to try and do too much. And by too much, I mean, when he had a gain of 6, when he had a gain of 6 or 7, he was turning it into gains of 1.5 yards because he was dancing too much, going too much east and west, and not enough north and south.
Yes, because instead of taking the 6 yards, he was trying to get the 20 yards, and instead he ended up with like 2.
Because in reality, Najee's brain, he's right. I mean, he really did have to do it all by himself. Otherwise, they were not going to do anything on offense this year. And when he didn't do well in the game, they didn't really do anything on offense. So it makes sense for him to try and do that. But yeah, I mean, he's got to revert to playing running back a smart way, and then I think that's going to help the Steelers a lot more because they need decent running back play at least. And it's been good for the Steelers to sub in Jalen Warren and Benny Snow in there, at least a pass block here and there, and get some carries and stuff. But yeah, I mean, Najee Harris, it seems like as soon as the offense maybe can start to figure it out a little bit on their own, Najee Harris his play will probably come back to, good running back play because he won't have to do it all on his own and he won't feel the need to do so. So hopefully Pickett continues to progress and they will get out of this little funk. I mean, they still only scored 24 points, so nothing spectacular, but not horrible. Pickett, but like you said, kind of like, and we'll get to this here in a second, Pickett looked better tonight. He only missed a couple of throws, and some of them were big. He did miss, I think, 1 or 2 touchdown throws, which that's 14 points, and we're talking about 31 points now, 14-point swing. Yep. But he definitely, that was probably one of his better games. He was just putting the ball in places and had good zip and was moving around well. Thank God he's not a microwave. I'll say that. I mean, they would have really been screwed if he was. But luckily, the typical college quarterback nowadays isn't, so that's nice. But another young quarterback who played well and with the little time that he did play, Jordan Love.
Yeah, I will try to keep this nice and sweet. I've done a lot of Packers talk on this show, but This was a fun game for America to cap off Sunday night.
Great
Overhit
game for America.
back and forth. And Jalen Hurts, let me tell you, he is just freaking amazing. This guy, and hey, kudos to him because I didn't realize this is actually the first year he's had the same offense, like in back-to-back years since high school when his dad was his coach. Like he's had either a different head coach or offensive coordinator every single year of his career. So shout out to him for finally getting some stability and just showing what he can actually do when he gets stability. So I think he's had a lot of bad luck in his career. And I think it's all starting to come together for him right now. And he seems like a really nice and classy guy. So shout out to him for a great game. The simple question is what the hell is Joe Barry doing? Like, we know the Eagles are going to run, and he just doesn't draw up a running defense. I think we have run stoppers on our team. I think our scheme is just really bad. Enough of Joe Barry, though. Jordan Love came in to replace an injured Aaron Rodgers, and I've been saying this. I hate Jordan Love. Nothing against him, just simply circumstantial is why I hate him. But I'm still going to root for him when he's in. And this is what I want. We want to see him. And Rodgers is talking about playing this week, and I get it because we're not eliminated, but also like at the same time, I don't want that. I want Jordan Love to play because we have to make a decision on his option after this year. We have to decide if he's the guy in the future after Rodgers because the Rodgers era is coming to an end soon. We don't know how soon, but it is soon. So we have to judge to see how good this guy is. And my biggest difference with him is that last year when he played against the Chiefs, he looked scared. He looked not ready, unsure, some of the words I've used to describe him. And he went out there for a drive, even before he went out there on the drive, when they were showing him on the sideline, like getting ready, getting his helmet on, getting warmed up, throwing some passes, he looked confident. And he looked like he knew what he was going to do, who he was going to go to. And he just, that's the best way to describe it is he looked confident. And he looked, it appeared that he had a great relationship with Christian Watson, who's going to be a stud. So, I mean, it's certainly an interesting headline to keep a look at, but he did come in and play well. So,
yeah, he did miss a couple of throws, but yeah, I mean, like you said,
he
did. So the facial expressions on his face, he didn't smile one time, which is fine because they were losing the entire time, but he just looked very calm. Like his face when he put on his helmet, it just stayed the same. He was like a stone cold killer out there, the way his facial expression didn't change. Yeah, I mean, he was in rhythm on the throw to Watson where he just took it to the house. But this was an eye test thing. His first couple of throws, oh my God, the zip on his throw on that out route towards the sideline to start the drive. It was such a beautiful throw. And I just know that if I was on the field and I was playing linebacker, and if that ball went past my head, I know you could hear the the zip on the ball. So that he had the throws that he made that were completed, even the one to Lazard that was a little bit behind him. There was so much room there that he could afford to have it a little bit behind him. The zip and the rhythm on the throws and the mechanics with the feet and the throwing motion looked good. And that's all development too. He had talent from Utah State, arm talent mostly. They were just kind of replicate some of the Mahomes stuff, Watson stuff, just arm talent,
Josh Allen stuff.
Yeah. But that is development. I mean, the mechanics, that is all from the Packers coaching staff and the work that Jordan Love puts in. I don't know anything about his regiment, but that's all development.
And maybe
stuff.
Rodgers,
his mechanics, yeah, and Rodgers, yeah, definitely. But his mechanics, night and day better from probably the last appearance I saw him in a real game. I'm not talking preseason. So, yeah, I think that it's
it's even better than the preseason.
Down to the wire. It's almost going to come down to the wire for you guys because if you don't. If Rodgers is good to go and you bench him, oh my god, I don't even know the kind of fit
Well,
he's
he did.
going to throw.
No, he was asked that question by one of the, I don't remember what media member it was, but he was asked that question this week. Like, what would he think if the Packers decided to roll with Jordan Love the rest of the year? And he said he would be fine with it. He would understand it because, you know, we are 4-8. We're not officially eliminated, but we're done. And so I guess I don't think he would be mad because he is injured. He is hurt. And maybe just having a reset and being like, hey, Aaron, we're giving up on this year. We might be tanking for a draft pick. We got to make a decision on your backup here if we're going to keep him for the future. Just come back ready next year to compete for a Super Bowl. Come back healthy. Just rest up the rest of the year. I think he would get. He might. You know, if we did it before this Bears game, just because he appreciates the Packers-Bears rivalry so much, he'd probably be a little upset. But ultimately, I don't think it would affect his relationship with the Packers at all. I mean, not any more than what it already has been affected. But so yeah, that wraps up.
Yeah,
an absolutely great week of football.
Do you see? It's just such a confusing thing because do you let him play? Because you got to let him play against the Bears because you know the team wants him to play. I think I can't remember. Was it Lazard who said you got to renew your ownership 2 times a year? Talking about the Bears, you know, because he owns the Bears. So
he does.
I saw that, and that's true. You know, you gotta let him play against the team that he loves to beat. I think that's just only fair to let him do that. But if he wins, I mean, how do you just bench him? I mean, because I agree with you. You guys, I have first off, I have no idea what's wrong with your team. I mean, the defense has just been bad this year, and the offense, obviously, at the beginning of the season was horrendous. So obviously, that's what was wrong. But I don't know why that happened. And I agree with you. I mean, you guys are roster-wise, paper-wise, Super Bowl caliber team. So I do understand just telling them, say, hey, man, you're hurt a little bit and we suck. We're not going to win anything this year. Sit the rest of this one out and let's get ready to go for next year because we also need to find out some things about Jordan Love. I agree with you on that. So, yeah.
And here's another.
Go ahead.
Another thing to throw in your ear here, Cam. We were talking about the Lions potentially making a run at the playoffs with 4 wins. The Packers also have 4 wins, and they have a schedule of the Bears, the Rams, the Dolphins, which is probably a loss, and then Minnesota at home. Anything can happen there, and then Detroit at home. So
Yeah.
this could be me speaking as a Packers fan, but I mean, this team. There's some games this year like the Lions, the Commanders, the Giants. You just look back and you're like, yeah, we should have taken those if we're the normal Packers. So maybe they're not, but hey, you never know. if the Packers go out and beat the Bears, they're sitting at 5-8. Who knows what happens on the bye week? Aaron Rodgers may say, hey, let's go try to make a playoff run.
Yeah.
It's probably too little too late at this point, but
it's probably too little too late, and you have to play the Dolphins. So
yeah, 8-9's
another loss, and you're like literally just there's nothing you can do. So
just tank at this point for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Sure, I guess. I don't even think he's eligible, so there's no point in doing that. But yeah, he's a sophomore, true sophomore. So there's no point in doing that. But
what are some other Jordan Addison? He's a good receiver.
He's a great possession receiver.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tank for him. So yeah, let's get to the fantasy corner here. This was a great week of football. The Thanksgiving games were great. And that was a long recap, but it was deservedly so. So but it is now time for the Show Me Show Fantasy Corner. Week 2.
Week 2.
We do have some questions from our
we're
very thankful for these questions.
Yes. Okay.
Cam, you got it?
I'll do it. We've both got answers, and we'll both talk about it. But so we have a slew of questions from Restaurants of Washmo. So thank you, Restaurants of Washmo. And the first one is I drafted Cam Akers and Allen Robinson on my fantasy team this year. Should I just quit playing fantasy football? And
No, never quit. That's
yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate. It was a setback, but here's the thing. I also drafted Cam Akers, and I was actually really big on Cam Akers this year. But here's the thing. I finished last in my league last year, and I'm on pace to finish last this year again. So I suck, and you know what I'm going to do next year? I'm gonna go back to the draft and probably draft a shitty team once again. It's just what you do. You just go back to the drawing board and just continue to lose. So if you suck, you suck. You just have to. You're just that guy in the league. You're the guy that gets invited to play in the league because the other people know that you're going to finish last. And so no, don't quit. Never quit. Quitting is never an option. Allen Robinson, I get that. I get that pick for sure. But I mean, any Rams player this year has been disappointing. So,
okay, so I give you three options here. Restaurants of Washmo. And I'm gonna start with the last one, and this is the one that I don't recommend, but I still have it on the list. Quit forever after this year. You have a valid reason. You know, you can why when people ask you, well, why'd you quit? Well, I drafted Cam Akers and Allen Robinson in my last season, and I just thought it was time to hang them up. That's a valid reason, and people will understand. That's like Peyton Manning in his last season. Surely you're not winning the Super Bowl, but it's like, yeah, well, if you actually watched any of the tape, it was time for me to hang it up. And, after drafting guys like that, you can think about it and be like, well, maybe it is time to hang it up. My second option for you is take a year off and get your mind right. Now, this is another one where, the league that you're in, they might miss you over the year and they'll be calling for you to come back after you take that year off, that year that you take off to get your mind right. And I'll tell you this, I have actually done this one before and it did help. It actually was probably one of my favorite seasons of just watching football where you're not ever thinking about fantasy. And if you're thinking about fantasy in a way that is frustrating, then maybe it is time to hang it up. And so the year I took off, I just enjoyed all the games, but I actually kind of missed it playing fantasy. So maybe taking that year off, it will give your love for the game. It will rejuvenate it. So that's another thing with taking a year off and getting your mind right. Now, I was very rusty the next year after I took a year off. So you have to beware. Adding that with already drafting Cam Akers and Allen Robinson could be a scary combo with taking a year off and adding some rust, but who knows? And then my last option for you is fantasy is honestly just pure luck. And so sometimes you just have to push through it, like Luke said. And, if you drafted Cam Akers and Allen Robinson, might be time to just start tanking for a higher draft pick next year. If that's how your league works. So, and just push through it. Guys being dudes, push through it. So, yeah. Those are your options.
yeah.
Question 2. What has happened to Russell Wilson? I drafted him as well. So that is a very rough fantasy year. I would assume you're probably in last.
Yeah, I also drafted him. So this is I got him. I drafted like my entire team, and then there was still some QBs left on the board. I'm like, wow, Russ Wilson, I'm gonna get him in like the 10th round. That's like a steal. Well, actually, that's a steal for Russ Wilson to go that high. He's been awful this year, and it's just a tough scene in Denver. They have the number 3 overall pick in the draft. Do you know that? But they're not going to be able to use it because they traded for Russell Wilson. Gave it to the Seahawks. So that's just an ultra tough scene. I don't even know what to say about that. They're just a dumpster fire over there.
Yeah. I've got a couple things about why, what has happened to Russ Wilson. And I think it's mostly a bunch of it has to do with Coach Hackett has kind of broken him by running their offense into the ground, which is crazy because Anthony Hackett was an offensive-minded coach. He's the former offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers. Anthony, sorry. Former offensive coordinator for the Packers. Nathaniel, not Anthony Hackett. I don't even know who. I'm sorry. Kim. But also, well, you know what? No, Anthony Hackett. You know, you have to win some games.
He doesn't deserve the respect of Nathaniel.
You know, I agree. If he maybe won some games, maybe I would know his name. So that's a point. You know, that's honestly a big point of what has happened to Russell Wilson. If you can't remember the first name of the head coach, it's probably not going well. And it's not. So, and you said you drafted Russell Wilson. I simply just wouldn't draft Russell Wilson again until they find a competent coach and the offense looks fluent. So, and also Wilson actually, might just be bad now.
No.
You don't think so?
I agree with that you never draft him again. But I think you just do the Jerry O'Connell thing and you just never draft him ever. Like he just has teams like the Jaguars. He never drafts any Jaguars because they've screwed him in the past. I think you just have to do this with the Broncos. You never draft a Broncos player ever again. I think that's the rule you have to do. I've already set the rule for myself because they haven't been good since the Peyton Manning era. I love how Broncos fans like to talk about the Packers and their struggles, but I mean, the Broncos literally haven't made a playoff in like 6 years. So second longest streak behind the Jets. So,
and you know what? So a show me show tip that we're going to give you is going forward, restaurants of Washmo, no drafting any Rams players, none, not even Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
None. So, just don't draft any Rams players. And Russ Wilson, it's a little bit of a mystery, but I think Coach Hackett broke him. So, and the let's ride thing, it is just a mess, and his team hates him. So,
and the danger. Okay. Well, the birthday party thing. Did you see that? That was weird. His wife threw him a 34-year-old man got a birthday party, and then he was like crying because half the team didn't show up. What is wrong with this guy? Like, I don't. Here's my opinion. I don't think it has anything to do with Hackett. I think it has to do with two different things. It's Team 3, which is his I don't know, like his agents or like the people that are like putting out his agenda. Basically, Team 3 is what it's called. And I think they when he was in Seattle, the corny Russ worked. Being corny, being kind of stupid. Being like a movie character, that worked because he was having success. And whenever they moved, they're like, continue to do it. And it really could be the true Russ, or maybe they're just trying to hide the true Russ from us. And then also, number 2, it's his wife. I don't want to blame this on women here, but a lot of times when someone kind of goes through this point in their life, it might have to do with their wife a little bit. We saw it with Tom Brady. And you know what? He dumped his wife. So maybe that's the answer for Russell Wilson. But maybe just pick out another rapper and go after his girlfriend in the future and just move on. Maybe that's the solution. And then also fire Nate Hackett. But that's my thoughts on it. So just Anthony do all Hackett. Those things.
All right. Question 3. This is my favorite one. If you could have one Washington High School Blue Jay football player as a fantasy player over the last 6 years, who would you pick and why? And I had to think about this one for a while. And if you only get to pick one, and you get to have their one best season from over the past 6 years, I think I would take Landon Boston from this past season, his junior year, because in terms of fantasy points, he just scored too many touchdowns not to take him. So he had 22 total touchdowns over 1,000 rushing yards. He had 20 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, and a passing touchdown. So I think I would take him just for the
20 rushing
touchdowns.
touchdowns is bonkers.
It is bonkers. It is so bonkers. But
That's
this
wild.
question just got me thinking because I had to think back through so many different players to try and make this decision that I came up with a last 6 years all-time fantasy roster.
Okay.
And so this is what I got. This is all point-based, so I'm going off of whoever racked up the most points. So
Yeah.
over the
was my
last
thought
6
on it.
years.
Like I assume that we're talking only offensive players here because
yes,
that's
for fantasy, last 6 years in terms of who would have scored the most points fantasy wise. And so for quarterback, I actually picked myself junior season because I threw 11 touchdowns that year, and I also ran for quite a few touchdowns as well. So points-wise, we're seeing it this year with like Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields, the quarterbacks who ran and threw for touchdowns. They rack up a lot of points, and I only threw one touchdown my senior year, so that would not be a good year to do it. And the and so the other quarterback that I thought about putting was Trevor Rennie senior season because I think he threw for over 10 touchdowns at least his senior year, but I couldn't really remember, and he didn't really score that much on the ground. He didn't really score that much on the ground. Other people did. So that's why I went with me because I did a little bit of both junior year, not senior year though.
Yeah.
And then for running back one, junior season, Landon Boston. Like I just said, running back one, Landon Boston. And then running back two, I had senior season Devin Deckelman. So his season from this past year too, he had like well over 10 touchdowns. And he had a couple of receiving touchdowns. And he had multiple kickoff return touchdowns. So
and a little bonus, he had a lot of field goals and extra points.
Yeah, I had him as the kicker because, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we had a couple of games where I think we dropped like 70 points. So he's getting like 10 points in those games, plus he had a 5-touchdown game and a game where he kicked like 9 extra points. So that's just 30 points off of touchdowns and an extra 9 after extra points. So fantasy points, if we're talking fantasy points, he's dominating that right there. And then for my wide receiver one, I have senior year Ben Strotman. And then for my wide receiver two, I have junior year Ben Strotman. He, in terms of fantasy points, that was the last time we used to throw too, was like when he was on the team. So in terms of fantasy points, he has definitely been the best wide receiver over the past 6 years. So I definitely took him. Tight end, Ryan Horskamp, senior year. He had quite a few touchdowns and yards. Even carried the ball a couple of times, so that was an easy one. And then my flex was senior year Christian Meyer. He had a couple of huge games, including like a 200-yard game with like I think 3 or 4 touchdowns against Fort Zumwalt East. So took senior year Christian Meyer because he was dominant his senior year. And then the kicker, I took senior year Devin Deckelman. And then for my defense, my fantasy defense, I took the 2020 defense that got us to the district title game. That was the best defense for sure, and caused turnovers and stuff like that. So that was a fun question.
Yeah, that was great analysis.
Any of those?
That was like a perfect answer. Well, yeah, I'm not going to go too far into this because I think you answered it almost perfectly. But my initial thoughts on it were it has to be an offensive player. And if you think historically, like if you had to pick one player, it's got to be the running back position because not only is that a rare position, but if you had to construct a fantasy roster out of either teams from the GAC or teams from the Four Rivers area, I think my running back would come from Washington in both of those scenarios, just based off the offense and the stats that they put up. And just, I mean, historically, and just in the last 3 or 4 years that I'm thinking of, we've had like 5 running backs go on to play college football. Christian Meyer, as you mentioned, Cole Nalick, Dylan Pape all went on, and then Landon Boston is going to go on to play college football. So it's just like some of these names, like it's a factory. It's a running back factory here at Washington. So it's like it's RBU.
Yeah. Well, well, I don't know,
RBHS.
but the running backs lately over the past, and obviously this was limited to the last 6 years. I mean, if we would have went back even further, we've had some even crazier running back totals in terms of touchdowns.
Jared
Kyle
Reddick.
Summers, Jared Reddick. Those two are the big ones that come to mind. But Landon Boston had a season right up there with those guys. So that's why I would have taken him as the number one player in the past 6 years. So that was a fun question. And obviously
Indeed
able to answer that because we went to high school there. So yeah. Okay. So that was the Show Me Show Fantasy Corner.
Oh, we're not done yet. We got stardom and situms and sleepers.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Good call.
You haven't done that yet. You want to start off? You?
No, well, you can go ahead and kick us off.
Oh, me. Okay. My stardom is the 12-team college football playoff. So I'm needless to say, I'm excited for it. It was officially confirmed this week with the Rose Bowl signing, with whatever the Rose Bowl had to do. But that was the last thing to make it official to become the 12 teams in a few years. And also, it's just fun to play those matchups like this year, looking at the rankings and like, oh, this team would play, like Tulane would be in the college football playoff this year with 2 losses, if that was the case. So that's a really fun one to look at. And yeah, just it's stardom because it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of blowouts, but I mean, realistically, I think you're going to get the same winner that you would get in a 14 playoff. It's just going to be more fun for the viewer. So I don't really think it changes anything like history wise. It's a little bit more fun for the fans.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get to see some home college football playoff games. That is going to be really nuts. Home college football playoff game. So that is going to be really
never been
sweet.
Seen before.
So that's a good
I think the
start.
only time there's actually been like post-season home games is like whenever UCLA would play in the Rose Bowl or something, which I wouldn't imagine has happened a lot, but it probably has. And then Hawaii seems to play in the Hawaii Bowl every year. Those are like the only 2 home matchups I can really think of off the top of my head, consistently. So in a postseason atmosphere, so it's going to be, and especially like in the playoff, the CFP when it really matters, it's going to be fun. And then my situm it's just a really simple one. You know what? I'm pivoting here. My situm is John Mozeliak because I was going to say Kanye, but that's just an easy one after what happened earlier this week. But
hey, don't hate. That's fine. Don't hate.
I'm it's taking everything I have not to hate. So, but John Mozeliak, on the other hand, for much different reasons than Kanye West, but he is not. He's asleep, and I don't think he's going to wake up anytime soon.
It's winter.
Reportedly,
he's in for his long winter nap.
He hibernates during the winter.
He does.
And so reportedly, Wilson Contreras and the Cardinals have had mutual interest. Like, and Contreras wants to come here. The players want him here. It makes sense because the catching position is open, but the Cardinals don't want to pay him. And after Mozeliak said, "Oh, well, payroll's going up," and then obviously the article a few weeks ago came out like, "Oh, they're actually not going to go up in payroll. Technically they are, but not really." So it's just a really tough scene, and just sit him because sign some free agent. Learn how to sign a free agent, John. I'm sorry, but you've never done. The best free agent you ever signed was Albert Pujols for $2.5 million, and that was for completely different reasons. Like historically, you've never been able to sign a free agent. How about learn how to sign a free agent, and then maybe we'll win a World Series. Maybe that's what it takes. I respect him with the trades. He pulls off some pretty damn good trades, minus the Ozuna one, and. But the free agent thing, man, just learn how to sign a free agent and improve the team a little bit using some of DeWallet's money. So that's my sit-em. And then my sleeper, what was my sleeper? Oh, DJ Moore. DJ Moore is my sleeper. Just a simple fantasy one here, which taking fantasy advice from the last place guy, I'm not going to say I recommend it, but I called it last week on the show. I said DJ Moore is going to have a big week, and he did. He had a touchdown, over 100 receiving yards, and as long as Sam Darnold continues to play, I think DJ Moore will continue to have big weeks. So if you own DJ Moore, keep starting him in fantasy because it's going to be a fun ride for you. Actually, you know what? Don't start him this week, though. He's not a sleeper this week because he's on a bye. So
okay. My stardom is, and I don't like this guy, but my stardom is Devin Booker. He scored 51 last night against the Bulls. 20 of 25, Luke. 20 of 25. He only played 31 minutes. So that's 80% shooting in the NBA is crazy. 6 for 7 from 3-point land, 20 of 25 total, 51 total points against the Bulls, who aren't very good, but still. So, like I said, I'm not a big Devin Booker guy. Should have went to Mizzou, followed in his dad's footsteps, and he's just kind of petty every once in a while, but start him. 50 bomb. My sit-em is Kanye West. Sit him.
Okay.
You got to sit him down.
All right.
I mean, somebody needs to talk to him. He is lost. He is digging himself in a very deep hole, saying that he is
sit him down?
Yes.
Alex Jones did that today, and it turned out very bad. So maybe just stand him up.
Maybe
stand him up and have him not use a chair.
You can't. Yeah. Yes, I'm sitting Kanye because he should not have a voice right now. Somebody needs to turn off his microphone. He is saying some very, very harsh and harmful things. Yeah. He's basically just pro-Nazi. He's very pro-Nazi. He literally said it today. So, my sleeper is Antonio Brown. They can't find the sneaky bastard. So, he is currently in a standoff with police. There is a warrant out for his arrest in Tampa Bay. The police are outside of his house, but they can't arrest him because he's inside of his house. They can't find him. So, my sleeper is Antonio Brown. So, yeah.
Wow. And one note I just want to mention about that is today is Thursday, December 1st. That's when we're recording this late in the evening, late evening hours. Just the fact that Kanye made all those comments earlier today on the Alex Jones podcast and Antonio Brown had a warrant for his arrest on the same day. Those two things occurred on the same day is just wild because these two guys, I think, have been interconnected. Like they had really, really booming careers and they started to turn it like right when Antonio Brown was starting to turn it around. Kanye was starting to turn it around, become more liked and all that. And then these last few years, they've just been kind of like slowly going off the rails. It started when Kanye was running for president. Obviously, it started for Antonio Brown with the whole Raiders and Buccaneers thing, that whole thing. And it's just gotten worse and worse for both of them. And the fact that it probably just ends on the same day is just, it's poetry. That's the only way I can describe it. So I guess if Kyrie Irving was kind of in this match, in this mess too, it would be even perfect. But Kyrie Irving
that would have been the Holy Trinity.
Very much there.
Well, unholy Trinity, I guess. But
no, I think think Kyrie Irving's pretty religious.
Yeah, but
I mean, he fasts for Ramadan.
well, he's Muslim though, so he probably doesn't want to be a part of the Holy Trinity.
Well, yeah, it's the wrong religion for him.
Respectfully to his religion. And I don't know what Kanye wants. I mean,
he wants attention. That's the only way I can think.
That's another thing too. I mean, you talked about how it's just gotten worse and worse for both AB and Kanye. And they probably both, I mean, I know Kanye, I'm pretty sure is bipolar, and Antonio Brown has CTE. And you said it started with the Raiders thing. It started after he got knocked out by Perfect, in my opinion. But even though that's probably not true, but I mean, in terms of it's an accumulation of hits, not just one hit. But really, he really hasn't been the same since that hit. Like, seriously, his career just flipped after that. But what I'm trying to say here is both of these guys self-inflicted wounds. I mean, they just do this to themselves. Like you said, I mean, he's got a warrant out for his arrest, and Kanye just continues to say things that are harmful to people. So, yeah. But yeah,
just continuously shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly.
Yeah,
it's just wild.
No offense to Plaxico Burress, but that's going to wrap up the fantasy corner. So, and we're going to get into the pick'em, and that will be the show. So, last week, 11-5. So a good week, Luke. We did end on a loss on Monday Night Football. The Colts, they dropped the ball in that one, and the Steelers actually won on the road. So I wasn't mad that they won. So that was a little bit of a shock because I'm not gonna lie.
We've had really good luck in the Sunday night and Monday Night Football games in the pick.
Oh yeah,
we seem to almost
dominant at picking prime time, except Thursday.
And so
Thursday hasn't really been
Thursday's hit or miss, but yeah, Sunday or Monday night, like it seems like we're pretty locked in on those, and so it was a little bit surprising. Just it's a humbling moment to get one of those wrong every now and then. But anyway, week 13. There is only 15 games this week as the Cardinals and the Panthers are both on a bye. And we started off 1-0 this week, picked the Bills to beat the Bears. We picked the Bills to beat the Patriots. The Bears aren't even close to the Patriots. I don't know what I was thinking there, but Bills over the Patriots, that one's 1-0. So positive start for the Show Me Show.
Yep.
Then the first game, do you have a specific order on here? I'm just going to go off the internet. Packers at the Bears.
See here.
I'll just point out mine.
One thing to point out. So Luke pointed out last week that we had the ability to go, get to 100 wins. We didn't do that because we went 11-5. It would have had to go undefeated, but we did go 11-5, and now we're 95-70, which is 25 games over 500. So that's pretty damn good. So yeah, first game, Pittsburgh at Atlanta.
Ooh, Pittsburgh at Atlanta. I'm gonna go the Falcons here. They've had a rough few weeks, and Pittsburgh's had a few good weeks here. I don't like that pick, but you know what? It's at Atlanta. Yeah, we'll go Atlanta. They're very similar teams. I think the Steelers are a really good team with TJ. When TJ Watt plays, the Steelers are just different. And they've looked different ever since he came back from injury. But the Falcons are fighting for a playoff spot here. And I don't know. I just like them in this game.
Yeah. This is a game that the Falcons have been losing as of late. So that's one thing to point out. I'm not going to veto it, but I think you kind of catch my drift. Like lately, they have not been able to win the important games in terms of playoff positioning. In fact, pretty much every single time the Falcons lose, the Buccaneers have also lost in the same week. So, I mean, they just cannot win the important games to get positioning. And this is an important game for the Steelers. This is kind of like, man, if we win this, we're really moving in a positive direction towards next year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they know they're not going to, but it's kind of like hey man, we're kind of getting in a groove. So pick is the Falcons though.
Yep. And remember, Cam, you do have 2 vetoes, and the vetoes came in handy last week. I went 2-0 on my vetoes, so it's the first time I've ever done that. I was very proud. I was very unconfident in the Panthers one, but it turned out.
Yeah, they blew them out, NFL wise.
Yes. And what's the next game?
Green Bay at Chicago.
Okay, this one it's a ton of question marks because we don't even know what QBs are going to be starting for either team. So this may have to be a game time decision, but it looks like Justin Fields is going to play. He had a full practice today, and he's on track. And it appears that Aaron Rodgers is going to play as well. So both of these QBs are going to be playing a little bit injured. So it's going to be a low-scoring game. The over is going to be high in this one. I'm just going to say that. It's going to be like a 48-49 over. Take the under. Because it's a very deceiving game, I think, in this one. Although the Packers' rush defense is not very good, and the Bears' rush attack has been very good. If Rodgers plays, it has to be the Packers. I just see no scenario in which Rodgers allows the Bears to beat them. If he doesn't play, I'm going to go with the Bears because, it's in Chicago. I think Justin Fields might have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And obviously the matchup with the Packers rush defense, it just works out. But it's the fact that Rodgers refuses to lose to the Bears. So,
yep, and so that'll be, I guess, our claws game of the week.
Yeah, a claws game for sure.
Shout out Santa. All right, next game.
All right, and then
Jacksonville at Detroit.
I alluded to this earlier. It's Detroit. This is a fun matchup, though.
It is, and this is an opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to build off what he had last week. So,
which he is anytime this year that he's had like a really good game or really good spot, it just seems like they let down the next week. So.
Yeah, so it's a good pick in terms of that stat for sure.
Yep.
But it is an opportunity for Lawrence to turn the tide on his season. So next game is New York Jets at the Skull Vikings. 1:00. Keep that in mind.
Oh, well, this is Mike White playing. This is actually going to be a fun game, but based off the fact that it's at noon and at home, I'm going with the Vikings.
Okay, I like that pick too. I think, oh man, I think it's crazy. It's kind of like the Colt McCoy thing. I feel like one Mike White masterclass, and then you're due for coming back down to earth. Like you're just due for it.
Exactly.
Which is sad. I kind of wish it wasn't like that. So I might be pulling for the Jets this week, and just in hopes of Mike White continuation of success. But yeah, I agree with the pick though. Your next game is Washington at the New York Football Giants.
Oh, this is an interesting game, and I want to pick the Giants just because it's in the Meadowlands, but the Commanders are coming on strong. They're hot. Brian Robinson's playing like a beast. Taylor Heineke's playing like a beast. The defensive line is finally playing good, and the Giants, it just seems like everything's kind of falling apart for them. So this is the first road team I think I'm picking. Well, the Bills, but yeah, it's the Commanders. Commies, They moved to 8-5.
This might be a really big defensive affair. Both sides. I don't know if a whole lot of points are going to be scored.
I don't know what to expect.
I thought points were going to be scored last week with that game. Commanders and Falcons, and the final was 19-13.
I did just think of a stat though, and that is really, really making me going against this. Daniel Jones historically is really, really good against the Washington franchise.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's
I remember
lost yet.
When he first started off. he was like 1-20 against everyone else, but he was like 4-0 against the Washington franchise. So, and it is at home. But you know, you know what? I'm sticking with my take. The Giants are.
Guns?
I'm sticking to my take that the Giants are falling off. I'm going against the grain here. Commanders, I think they break the trend. Although just the ineptitude, I think Pat McAfee described it just perfect when he said this. The ineptitude of their franchise is so incredibly wild. The fact that the Sean Taylor thing that happened last week, that statue, it was literally just a mannequin in a 21 jersey. It was
incredible.
It was almost shockingly stupid.
Yep.
And he had soccer shoes on too.
2 years in a row they messed that up. Last year they allowed Jackson Mahomes to dance on his grave pretty much. And this year they had a mannequin from the Under Armour store. So, all right, your next game.
Just give him his due diligence already. My
Denver
Lord.
at Baltimore. Gross game. Gross game, really.
You know, the funny part is you said Denver, and whoever you said next, unless it was the Texans, I was going to pick them. So you could have said any other team there, and I'd pick them over Denver right
now. Cleveland at Houston. In the return
this is Cleveland.
Of Groper.
Yeah. Groper Cleveland. Yeah, this is actually a big revenge week. This is a huge revenge week, and this is...
I might veto.
Go ahead.
I might veto.
Wow.
Out of respect.
Right. You're going to veto the Texans?
This might be pure let out your hatred for Groper Cleveland and go get a win for the H-Town.
I don't know if it's the same situation as Russell Wilson. I don't think the locker room hates him. Like, yeah, they think he's weird, but this also like isn't locker room. Like immediately after he didn't play last year. So a lot of those guys on the team didn't even play with him, I feel like. Because there's been a lot of change in that team in the last 2 years. So a lot of those guys didn't even play with him. This is a revenge game, though. And this is a huge revenge week. There's a few matchups this week where it's like, oh, yeah, that's revenge. And this is definitely one of them.
Okay. Well, now that I'm coming back down to earth, I don't really want to veto it because it's a bad on paper.
Yeah.
On paper, that's a bad veto. But there's...
Yeah, I mean, my veto with the Panthers last week was bad, but if you veto with the Texans, that's even worse.
I mean, it's just, I mean, in the preseason, he threw like 5 passes and they were like all incomplete, or he was like 1 for 5. I feel like we'll come back to it at the end. For right now, it's Cleveland, but like, I feel like if this is a missed non-veto, it could be detrimental just because this is a big spot in NFL history.
For sure.
Can the H-Town take down the Fighting Brownies and their predator at quarterback?
Yeah.
It's a historical moment.
That is the fact that Cam just pronounced the 4-7 Browns versus the 1-9-1 Texans, a huge moment in NFL history. That is a take.
It is a take, but it's also kind of valid. Like, this is unprecedented. Think about it. It's not like O.J. Simpson ever played a football game again after his crime. It's not like Aaron Hernandez ever stepped back on the field after his crime. Unprecedented waters, uncharted waters that we're wading through right now. Deshaun Watson is stepping back on the field after what he did. Crazy times. So in that case, it is NFL history. But actually, next game, Seattle at the Rams.
This is like what you're saying is like this is setting a precedent for what's going to happen the next time a guy who sexually assaults 27 women plays in the NFL in his return. You know, this is the precedent game, is what you're saying.
This. Or did that? All I'm saying is this is uncharted water. When we have seen guys We've seen guys get kicked out of the league for weed and not come back. He is coming back. This is like the ultimate comeback. No, that was bad. That was bad wording, but it really is. It really is. I mean, he should probably be in prison, and here we are. So stamp it. The ultimate comeback.
The ultimate comeback in more ways than one.
So
wait, what happened after Big Ben came back, though? What did he do in his return from his allegations?
no, I think he just went back to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. That's just not. That is not the same story. Way less people, way more quiet, and the media just didn't eat that up like it ate this up. And those are all facts. I mean, the media has eaten this alive because this is a huge story. I mean, and it was.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously it quieted down and the suspension, was extended. I mean, Big Ben, I don't even think he got suspended. I mean, but you're right. I mean, it was much of the same. Although I don't even know if those were settled in court. I think those might have just been settled outside of court. All of these, I mean, another thing about, obviously, with Watson, now we're just getting into way too deep of water with Watson. I mean, there were some ladies that were accusing Watson. I don't even think they were requesting money, They weren't even suing for money.
Yeah.
They were just suing strictly because of what he did. So, a little different.
The fact that the Browns literally had to. They're like, Deshaun, you cannot get any massages unless they're team approved. Like, they have to babysit him with this now. It's just kind of funny. The guy who you just paid $230 million to be your quarterback, you have to babysit to make sure he doesn't get himself in trouble with massage ladies. So,
and you got to give a little credit to Deshaun Watson. They had the the World Fair for massages in Cleveland this year. So,
no way.
Yes, they did. They had like the massage conference or something like that, where like all the massages people, I guess, they just went to Cleveland. I don't even know. This was like a few months back. I don't know how you missed this. Like, it was a big meme on the NFL Twitter world where Cleveland was like hosting like downtown like this massage event.
It's too ironic.
So it is very ironic.
I cannot believe that.
But he got through that, so got to give him credit.
He beat the massage fair allegations.
So,
but not the regular massage allegations. He did not beat those.
Yeah,
well, some of them
still struggling. 4:05 game. Seattle at Los Angeles Rams.
Seattle.
God, I hope Seattle wins. I mean, Jesus, I hate the Rams.
they're so bad.
Yeah. Although I do have something to bring up at the end of the show for Mizzou.
All right.
But that kind of deals with that. But next game, Miami at San Francisco. Got to be the game.
Revenge game.
I think.
Revenge game, too. Obviously, Mike McDaniel and Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. all getting their revenge on San Francisco this week. So it's a very interesting, very, very interesting scenario. Where is it at? Is it at San Francisco? Yeah. It's the Fighting Jimmy G's then. But I tell you what, this is the matchup of the century. That Miami offense versus San Francisco defense. We're going to find out a lot about these two teams this week.
I might veto off vibes due to the fact, Luke, Tua has not lost a game since he has been the starting quarterback for the full game this year.
It's too close. I'm not going to veto you back, but I realize that, but it's the Fighting Jimmy G's. God damn it. He's so handsome too.
I know.
He just looks at me with those eyes, and I'm like, I have to pick him to win.
God, their
But
offense sucked,
Mike
though.
McDaniel too. But Mike McDaniel,
Yeah.
he's so funny.
He might be the Jimmy G
He's
stopper.
America's coach. He might be the Jimmy G stopper. You know what? I'm changing my pick to the Dolphins. I don't care
Let's
about Jimmy
go.
G.
Let's roll.
I'm on the Mike McDaniel train, the revenge train.
This will look bad if the Fighting Jimmy G's win, but because he is like,
I don't
if
care.
he
It's a
wins,
fun pick.
I mean, if he wins, I mean, it is just his handsomeness is going to be really messing with us after this game if they win. So, but you have to ride.
And also,
unless you're Denver.
fantastic jersey matchup too.
Oh, beautiful. Especially at Levi Stadium. That's just a beautiful city as it is. So, yeah, great matchup. Next one, AFC Championship game rematch, Kansas City at Cincinnati. I want the Chiefs.
This is the fact that you just said another game is the game of the week and not this.
Great slate.
You know, I like the Chiefs because I do think they're the best team, but it is in Cincy. It's in the great state of Ohio. And I think the Bengals are cooking. Jamar Chase is going to play in this game. No one's reported it yet, but I'm reporting it that Jamar Chase is going to play in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's going to be a huge boost to Cincinnati. And I don't know, Joe Burrow may own Mr. Patty. So I like the Bengals in this one.
No. I'm vetoing. I can't. Mahomes has been too good lately. Even after last week, they did not even play that good. But I'm taking him. I'm sorry. And I think this is the last loss of the Bengals regular season.
I think this is the last loss of the Chiefs regular season. What would you do if I vetoed you back?
I'm fine with it if you do, but I don't.
Okay.
I really don't understand why we ever pick against Mahomes. It really never makes any sense.
Well, realistically, yes, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense because if we go with the Bengals here and then Mahomes just wins, like what are we gonna do? But I think some guys just may.
And I don't know.
If
Jamar Chase is really going to play.
There's no way he doesn't. He was supposed to come back last week and didn't, and there's no way that they're playing the Chiefs and he's like, yeah, I'm going to sit out again. He's going to come back. It's going to be like an Aaron Rodgers moment, like, try to bench me.
I hope he does. I have him on my fantasy. I'll start him
too.
if he does play.
Me too. I expect this game to be like Jamar Chase. He's going to be a game time decision, and he'll probably they'll be like, yeah, he'll play, but on a limited time. Like he'll have limited reps, and then he'll still end up going for like 8 receptions, 90, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he'll make a huge impact, and they'll be like, oh, the Jamar Chase effect, and the Bengals win. I can see the headline already. That's why I'm vetoing your veto with the Bengals. I'm very confident in this one.
I guess it's Bengals.
The Bengals are hot, and they need wins.
All right, next one, LA Chargers at Las Vegas Raiders. Ooh, this one's weird. Raiders are hot.
Yeah, and the Chargers, you never know what's going to happen.
But they did win on the road last week.
Yeah, that was a hard fought. How is the Chargers' run defense?
Both teams had hard fought road wins last week.
How is the Chargers' run defense? Is it good? Chargers.
I mean it's pretty mid. I'm pretty sure it actually is like middle of the pack. Let's take a look.
That makes it harder. You know what? I'll take the Chargers in a very fun game. Very fun, high scoring affair.
High scoring affair, huh? Oh,
Yes.
yikes! They actually have the 28th worst rush defense.
Oh, so they're like bottom 5.
Yeah, they give up 150 rush yards a game.
Okay, well then that actually changes my pick. Because Josh Jacobs and that Raiders offensive line is just going to go ham on them. So, yeah, I'm switching to the Raiders now.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh man, I don't know about that.
If they're that bad,
that could be an ugly one on Sunday, or just like why the hell did we pick the Raiders? But we'll see.
I just gave you my analysis why. Josh Jacobs, Raiders offensive line, Chargers bottom 5 rush defense. Simple. It's analytics.
Fun. Yeah. Here's another analytic for you, Luke. Josh Jacobs, 3-star, had to sleep in his car at times during his high school experience. 3-star. 3 offers out of high school. Can you name them?
No. I absolutely cannot.
Alabama.
Okay.
Tulsa, because he's from Tulsa. Mizzou. How about that?
Oh.
Mizzou could have had Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, but
only 3 offers.
It's hard to compete with Alabama.
Yeah, but he was only a 3-star. They're like, you're not going to play. And Josh Jacobs is still like, okay. And eventually he just played down the stretch during his senior year. So, It's Vegas. And Indianapolis at Dallas.
Indianapolis. Oh, this is a Sunday. This is an ugly Sunday night game, and this is Dallas.
Thank God. I can't wait to see Mike McCarthy. New Orleans at Tampa.
Wait to see his fat ass.
Monday.
Oh, God. No. Please. Is that the Monday night game?
It is. Can we please get a Jameis return to Tampa?
You're telling me I have to watch Andy Dalton in prime time in a standalone game? Does Dennis Allen care about the mental health of America? Does he know that America actually has a huge mental health problem right now? Because you know what? I'm calling out Dennis Allen right now. Dennis Allen, if you support men's mental health, then do not start Andy Dalton on Monday Night Football against the Buccaneers. Because you will cause an outrage. And for that very reason, it's Tampa. I don't care where the game's at. If Andy Dalton's playing, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Solid pick. I agree with that one, especially since they're at home. And the Saints suck. They just suck. So, yeah, that's the picks.
I've never liked the Saints. So.
I like them if Jameis is playing. If not, then I don't like them. Although I do like Jameis on the sidelines.
I like the fans.
So,
all right. So that's going to wrap up a long show this week. Hopefully we have a good week of picks and just a good week in general. You know, it's the holiday season. That could have been my stardom as Christmas because it's December now. That's wild, for one. The holiday season, so everything's positive and cold.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to say. That's the end of the show. You said you were going to have some stuff to wrap up the show, though. So
yeah, I had one question
about Mizzou.
Hypothetical to ask you. We're talking about the Rams. I was talking about how much I hate the Rams because I was thinking of Stan Kroenke. Luke, in case you didn't know, Stan Kroenke is a proud University of Missouri alumni. If you did not know that. So, and Stan Kroenke has some dollars in his pocket. Would you forgive Stan Kroenke a little bit if he forked out some money to pay for Dominic Lovett to stay at Mizzou?
No. It would be appreciated. I would appreciate that effort that he would give. I don't think he's going to do it because I don't think he really cares about the people in Missouri anymore. But if he forks out enough money, enough NIL money for recruits across the nation to come to Mizzou, and Mizzou makes the college football playoff, largely in part to Stan Kroenke's NIL money, then maybe I'll forgive him. But until that happens,
I think I can get up to 50% forgiveness via NIL.
yes. Yeah, I don't know if you can't ever fully forgive him for what he did.
For what he did.
It's permanent, just stain on the heart. So
it still hurts.
But
I still wish every single week during the NFL season that we had a St. Louis team in the NFL. I do it every single week. So just a fun hypothetical thought on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, to answer your question, if he would do that, and I would appreciate it because I like Dominic Lovett and he's a very good player, and it would be appreciated. But no, I wouldn't even forgive an ounce of what he did. He'd have to do leaps and bounds above just that. So if Mizzou wins a national championship in large part due to Stan Kroenke, then part of his dues are forgiven. But if and only if. So. That's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, that's our show. So,
yeah.
Hope you had a
no
good
simulator this
weekend. Yeah, no simulator. But conference championship week for college football. So, enjoy that. I'm excited for that. But yeah, so have a good football weekend, and I'll see you guys later.
Also, the USA advanced. I almost put that on my stardom was Christian Pulisic, but college football playoff just made too much sense. So, but Christian Pulisic, what a dog!
Yep. Thank you for sacrificing just your penile for this great country,
for your country.
So,
people are saying he's a greater hero than the troops. So it's debatable for sure.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I never said it either. I just said people are saying. But yeah, they got, what is it? The Netherlands at 9 a.m. Central Time in Qatar on Saturday morning. So tune in to watch the United States lose.
Start your football
with some good old soccer.
So
yeah. My pick is we lose. I think my prediction, I'll say 2-0.
Damn, that's gonna hurt.
Netherlands just they do a good job of scoring goals in the United States.
So if we win the Elite Eight, right?
Yes, and we would play the winner. We'd play Argentina if we beat the Netherlands. The winner of Argentina and I forget the other team.
We can beat Argentina. Mexico beat them.
Lionel Messi.
Yeah, he's gonna be played in the States coming up. So
yeah. Mexico did not beat them, by the way. That was Saudi Arabia. Who may have rigged it, by the way. I don't want to say that, but they could have very
easily rigged it. Your head.
So yeah, it's the winner of Argentina and Australia.
Okay.
And then if we somehow miraculously beat the Netherlands and Argentina, we'd be in the semifinals. But at this point, it's a win for USA Soccer qualifying for the knockout stage, something we haven't done in a long time. So I'm now a huge soccer fan.
World Cup.
USA's #1 fan, baby. Yeah, World Cup, of course. And yeah, that's our show. So everyone tune into those important dates. And hope you all enjoyed a very long show. So thank you for listening to it all if you're still listening, of course. We'll see you next week.